all know that anytime we meditate, all the traditions emphasize that we do either Guru Shakti, or the Buddhists call it taking refuge. You do something to open yourself to your real nature, to your divine nature. Very important to get out of the reactive mind and into the heart space. Sometimes people say it, other people focus it. Just focus it on your breath or your body, something to get you out of your opinionated mind, your talking mind. And that's often the way we start out. That's beginning. That's our Guru Shakti practice. There's also a concentration practice. All the traditions have a concentration practice. Some people follow their breath. Other people count. In our tradition, we do Chata as a way of developing concentration. Absolutely essential. It keeps the mind from wandering and flapping all over the place, but to bring the mind to a single point. The next one we always do is our meditation practice. And that we know very well is to something that we slowly, gently bring ourselves back to, in our case, a mantra. And I know all of us have been meditating for a long time, but the mantra often starts out very forceful and present in your life. And then after many years, it mutates, it becomes very, very subtle, and people develop their very personal relationship with their mantras. But a very important practice that Guru Raj really loved was contemplation. And in our tradition in AMS, we often love to think of the Guru as sort of like a goof and a crazy, and he just said anything that came into his head, and that we weren't even supposed to really study this stuff. We always kind of said that's too intellectual, that putting yourself in your head. But Guru Raj really insisted that we were supposed to try to figure out what this stuff was about. And if you take out all the crazy jokes, which I love, and all the hijinks and all the crazy stuff we did with the Guru, well, two things. The Guru was no egomaniac, but he wasn't really even a human being. He didn't have a human ego. So when he's doing his hijinks, he would let us dress him up in his outrageous outfits. We'd do silly crowns on him and play all these jokes with him, and he played along with it. That's not the actions like the buffalo demon that's in the, that we have now for a president. That's not an egoistic kind of action. That's a divine playfulness. But his satsangs are actually pretty tight. And for a guy who just made this stuff up for an hour and a half at a time, they're pretty amazing that he could do that. We all know that he would often sort of just do I think a pretty good satsang for the first 15, 25, 35 minutes, and then often he would do filler. And sometimes when we listen to him, it's very important to listen to him, but we sort of drift into kind of like a blissed out space where we often start not even really paying attention too much to what he was actually saying. So my intention here is to really do a contemplation of one of his satsangs and really look at them like the rough version of what he was a pretty sophisticated master. This particular one is US 83010, and it's Man's Inmost Heart, Man's Purest Vow. And the version I have, which I'll show you, has sort of AMS logo on it. I found it on my computer. Someone, I don't know if you did it, Kenton, or Vidya, or somebody's already cleaned it up a little bit. The original version, which I've looked at, is Chetan, an old devotee in our group that I think a lot of us remember from the old days, asked one of sort of a Chetan question, which like, oh, Guru Raj, what is man's innermost wish? What is his most profound vow? Or something really musical like that. And then Guru Raj often sort of made fun of that stuff. Sometimes he was like that himself, and then other times he sort of would like get off it a little bit. And his first response to that question, I think an ordinary guru would have said, oh, my son, you just realized the divine, the divine essence. No, Guru Raj seemed to be talking about something else. But I'm going to read the first paragraph. He really is talking about just what is our deepest wish, our most profound vow. He really is. He says, well, first the question, beloved Guruji, what is man's inmost heart? What is man's purest vow? Now we have to remember that this is the early 80s, so nowadays we always, They're talking about man in the old-fashioned sense of human beings. What's a human being's deepest heart, inmost heart, their purest vow? So Gururaj's response, there is nothing that is really apart from another thing. That is the greatest delusion that man suffers from, finding separation in this world. You have never been apart from divinity. Never, ever. You are eternal, immortal, as divinity is. And you've never been separate from that. So what on earth does that have to do with an inmost heart and a purest vow? You know, well, he's addressing the fact that we don't believe that. I mean, we say we do, but we don't believe that for a second. We don't think we're divine. We think we're fallible human beings. Some of us think we might have a divine part of us, but most of us think like we're people with ordinary biological needs, and people who get angry at political candidates, and, you know, we just live out petty lives. Most of us think of it that we have problems. We're people with problems. If we were gods or goddesses, we wouldn't have any problems. Like, why are we unhappy? Why do we want more if we're divine? Wouldn't that be enough? Gururaj says, when he says, when there's nothing that's really apart from another thing, he's saying that's the whole problem. We believe there is. We believe there's separation between us and presidential candidates or presidents. We think there's separation from us and the people we live with. He says there's nothing that's really apart from other things. That's the greatest delusion that you suffer from, finding separation in this world. Then he goes on and he says, next paragraph, your little ego self has assumed a separation, although the ego self exists only on borrowed light of the real self within you. The ego self assumes that it is the thing that does everything. You would say, even now, I will get up from this chair and walk to that door. Well, what I are you talking about? Who's doing the walking? You mean I, the John or James or Jack or Jean or Jane, is getting up from that chair and walking through the door? Has it ever occurred to you that you aren't the doer? That it's not you that are walking from the door to the chair? There's an infinite power that permeates that small I of mine that makes me walk to the door. A lot of us spiritual types think that the ego is the bad thing. It's something, you know, wrong. You know, it's the ego. He's saying the ego thing is actually, it only exists as an aspect of divinity. It's on borrowed light. He doesn't say it's the nasty thing that's keeping you from divinity. It's simply the thing that you think you are. And you guys are all deeply experienced meditators, so you get the concept. Something's making the blood move in our bodies. Something that's making all the atoms and molecules, whatever those are, the shitrons, come together to make this form. You know, if you try to say, you have no way of knowing what you're going to say or what you're going to think in the next minute, let alone from the next hour. You're not doing anything. Next paragraph. At every moment of our waking state or sleeping state, we're adding importance to that little ego self, which is manufactured by the various thoughts in our minds. What is thought? Well, it's just a combination of various factors surrounding you or within you that form themselves into a certain pattern. And this very energy, thinking itself to be the real self, finds itself separate from that which is divine. That's a pretty sophisticated paragraph. I've been studying Dzogchen Buddhist meditation now for close to 12 years. I know this stuff pretty well, and that's what it's about. The ego self is manufactured by the various thoughts in your minds. Did you know you only have an I, ego self, when you're reacting against something? Like, I don't like that guy on TV. I want a new car. I'm miserable today. Before you had that thought, I don't like that guy on TV, you were actually, in a certain way, no place. You were aware, but there are moments where you don't have conscious thoughts. The thoughts arise often sort of random speculations, like, I hear a bird. That sounds nice. I want that. Those are random thoughts that get formed out of divinity. We can call it, if you're going to read science, what is it? Some magazines that we saw at Sprout Supermarket, you can say it's random chemical manifestations in the brain synapses, electrical impulses. That's just bullshit scientific language for saying it's divinity. It happens, it arises spontaneously out of emptiness. It arises out of miraculously. Consciousness just shows up. He's saying this very energy, thinking itself to be the real self, finds itself separate from that which is divine. You're divine whether you want to be or not. How could you not be? How is this all happening? You didn't make it happen. You're just sitting around complaining about it. Like, how did that guy get elected? It just happens. Even this ego self is divine. For illusion would not be there if there were not the factor of non-illusion. Illusions are superimposed upon reality, actuality. That's what the Buddhists mean by emptiness. They mean potential energy, or what they call in cosmology, what is that? What's that branch of physics that they always are quoting about? Oh God, what is it? Not indeterminism, but it's the sense that nothing exists as solid matter. It all exists as like potentials of energy, and everything's related to everything else. Help me out, somebody. What's the name of that thing? That kind of branch of physics? Physics? Quantum mechanics, but it's also, oh well, I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Everything is real to you because your senses can perceive them. Your eyes see, your hands feel, your tongue tastes, your ears hear, your nose smell. So many things around us seem totally real. But if you go down to the essence of them, are they really real? Is it not like a mirage in the desert that a thirsty man sees? And the more he chases after the mirage, the water, the more tired and weary he becomes until he collapses. That's exactly what man is doing in this desert of life. He's chasing mirages. And by chasing mirages, he distorts his thinking abilities and creates greater and greater confusion in his mind. I'm going to explain to you briefly what I think something astonishing that's going on. Let's say you get angry on somebody on TV. What's really going on? There is light patterns in the diodes on the TV screen. They're on, I think, green, blue, and red. I think those are the three. They're creating colored light patterns. Colored light patterns are striking certain receptors. This is what the scientists tell us. I'm not making it up. They say we have a retina in the back of our eye. Each one of those retina, they're rods and cones, I think it is. They are designed to respond to different light waves. So your retina is picking up light waves of energy from a TV screen. Simultaneously, there is vibrations in the air that were created by machinery inside the TV that are stimulating the eardrums in your ears. So the light ray pattern like that are being picked up by the retina. They're being formed into electrical impulses that are sent down to the optic nerves. And I read about this. They are rapidly go to, God, I can't remember the different parts of the brain, where they're initially sensory operated, they're given levels of association with different things, they're rocketed around the brain, imaging up what do those different images mean. Meanwhile, the sounds similarly are going from the eardrums to the anvil, the stirrup, coordinating electrical impulses. I think it's in the back part of the brain, whatever part of the brain that processes audio stuff, speech patterns, suddenly in the middle of your brain, midbrain regions, are identification of what images are, appropriate associative content. You situate those in your personal set of, well, they're samskaras according to Gururaj. We would say they're just neural network patterns. And then they're given emotional charges. This happens instantly. Mirage is like waves of electrical energy in the brain. Gururaj is saying, you know, the explanation I just gave you is to create some distance, but it's also just frickin' bullshit. That's just the scientific explanation to point out that it's insane what's happening. How can we have an image? It's just, it doesn't make any sense. How could it be on the TV and then it's in our thoughts? What's the connection? It's electrical energy. How come we have these experiences? Gururaj saying it's a total illusion. And we superimpose it onto life. So why is this happening? Because we're divine. This is God. It shows up, but it makes no sense how it happens. We pretend like we're angry at some idiot on the TV. We just made that up. We made it up completely. Gururaj, this is what the Buddhists, they get all scared, and the poor Buddhists sit around and saying, I don't think I've ever had a glimpse of the clear night nature because it's just too complicated. And you want to go over the side, kiss them in the face and say, you idiot, you're doing it right now. Wake up. It's happening now. God is right here, not anywhere else. Someone asked me a question this afternoon. That person said, I've got a family to look after, children, husband, and others, but I'd like to have more time to do my meditations. I would say that meditation leads you one way, but your action in daily life leads you in another way. Say we separate our activities for God and we're too busy to pay attention to what's going on. But it works in a circular manner where the two could meet, where that very action of yours would be invalidated without meditation. And without meditation, your actions could never assume the purity they should have. Gururaj is very subtly shifting the target from a description very skillfully of absolute reality. What is actual? He calls it what is real, what is actual, what is the illusion of separation that we live in. The Buddhists would say, what is relative reality? What is absolute reality? By the way, you can't experience genuine divine love or compassion without being grounded in the absolute nature, or the way the Vedanta people say it, first be established in self, then perform action. And Gururaj is a classic Indian philosophy. So that's what he's starting to talk about now. So he said, this very action of yours would be invalidated without meditation. In other words, everything you do, unless you establish yourself in meditation, is just going to be dwelling in illusion. How can you operate out of reality? Without meditation, your actions could never assume the purity that they should have. Okay, so how am I going to do that, Gururaj? So what we do is to renounce. Renunciation does not mean renouncing the actions and responsibilities of life, like looking after one's children or one's husband or wife. But the selfishness attached to the actions are to be renounced. So what does he mean by selfishness here? Then meditation goes where everything, all action and all thought is nothing else but meditation. By the way, do you meditate? What meditates? If it's your ego self, if it's you meditating, you might as well read a book. Why don't you let God meditate? Like let the real self meditate. There's a misconception that when you sit down for a half an hour in the morning and a half an hour in the evening and you say that you're a meditator, that's just to charge up your batteries. But that must last through the 23 hours of the day during your sleep and during your waking hours filled with activity. Therein you will find the secret of inactivity in activity, as the Gita says, and activity in inactivity. That sounds like Gururaj double talk. It's not. He just said what I told you from the Gita. First be established in self, the silence, the stillness. First be established in reality, in this absolute nature. Then you perform action, and it's pure. This is great stuff. You want to meditate so as to find that oneness within yourself, where the mind, the body, and the spirit can become integrated. That is good. That must be done. But it also must find its expression in your daily action. What's the use of a seed of a beautiful flower if it's not planted and is rotted, just rots away? Just as within the ground the seed explodes, within you that very explosion or renunciation of selfishness is what makes the tree grow. What tree is he talking about? A tree of divine life. To experience your life as divine, as God's life, not your petty ego arguing about this and that. The seed has to be exploded. It means that you're getting rid of that little ego self, attaching no importance to it whatsoever. And then you experience the now of life. You experience what is. So renouncing the ego self, which is just the illusion that we're doing anything. How do you do that? You can go to see a magic show, for example, and the magician will make an elephant disappear on the stage, and it seems very real to you. Is it? What about all those black claws and the mirrors that are used and the electronic devices or the motor car? We give life to the seemingly real, but not in the actual. Gururaj once quoted a very well-known, very profound aphorism. That which you think is real is totally unreal. And that which you think is unreal is the only reality. That stuff you're all angry about, that's just your anger. This is all phenomenon. Everything inside your head's just phenomenon. It's your being upset about it, saying, I want it to be this way. I don't want it to be that way. I want this. I don't want that. This is mine. You get out of here. You know, that's your stuff. That's your suffering. That's your illusion. The truth is, you are Trump. You're everything you experience. That's you. Good, bad, and indifference. What if it could just be remembered at the back of your mind, and with the practice it comes, that I am not the doer. The little ego self is not the doer. The doer is he. By he means divinity. Pardon the sexist term, but that's traditional there. He's Siva. When you have that idea, you become non-attached to your actions. And therefore, any action you perform will not add any more samskaras to your mind. You gradually become samskara-free, free of the impressions which imprison you. Your actions and your thoughts become non-binding, and then you enter the realm of freedom. That's the meaning of liberation, self-realization, or in other terms, unity consciousness, where the act, the actor, and the action become one. This is really profound. What's a samskara? A samskara is like when you're a little kid and somebody kicks you. And you look at that person, it's like first you're going along in bliss, like you watch little 3-year-old kids and they're just like, playing and looking around and stuff. And then somebody like, put that down, and the kid goes, oh my God. And they look up and they see this big, angry, person. And they think, oh man, I'm going to get back at that person. Or they think, oh, I'm a terrible person. And it leaves a scar, a memory scar. These actually, the kid gets upset because it triggers into a previous, we all studied samskaras, haven't we? It taps into previous life experiences where something big slapped you. Like you're a little frog going along, all happy, swimming along, and then something gets you. And that leaves an impression. So the samskaras are long chains. The secret is don't react to it. How do you not react to Donald Trump or Donald Trump, I love him, save me, oh Donald Trump? How do you not react? You're not the doer. You're just your samskara, it's your machinery that's doing it. And they go, oh, it's my machinery. And you start looking at the poor old Donald Trump and think, that poor son of a bitch, he must be really miserable now. And you start having a little bit of, oh my God, he's playing out those samskaras too. He's living out some crazy fantasy that's not nearly as fun as he thought it was going to be. Well, I do exactly the same nonsense. Exactly. But Gururaj is saying, when you really, these samskaras clean themselves up, these patternings clean themselves up when we develop the attitude of, I am not the doer. Divinity is the doer. And we develop that, what he talks about later, that non-attachment. Even washing dishes or sitting behind a desk with a pen is a form of meditation. Thought forces are working away, and yet inside you are still. You feel that unity expressing itself in whatever work you're doing, and that work becomes effortless and restful. You do not develop stress. You do not develop tension. You are relaxed. And that is how some of us can go on and on and on. Even all kinds of sicknesses or diseases or incapacities of the body do not bother us. It is a new world to be awakened to. And that new world is the nowness of life. That's a very beautiful way of saying it. When we have that sense, I am not the doer, divinity, is playing through me. I'm simply an actor on this gigantic stage. I and Trump and everything are part of divinity. We're all playing our parts. And guess what? It's all just fine. When I went to a spiritual group the other day, there was a woman who was running it. She quoted Krishnamurti, who lived a long and very productive life as a teacher. And somebody asked Krishnamurti at the end of his life, he says, you know, what's the secret of your great serenity? You know, your great peacefulness. What's your secret? And he says, well, I don't mind anything that's going on. Gururaj is saying that if we really have this attitude of surrender, that's another term used for it, but really allowing divinity to be divinity, he says that it's possible all the sicknesses or diseases or incapacities of the body do not bother us. By the way, that's, for a lot of us, me too, that can be the thing you're most worried about, is the physical pain and the terror. Being in a body that needs food, that gets sick and dies, that needs sleep. That's a pretty scary thing. He's saying even that we could also just accept as manifestations of, so it's just divine play. Have you ever watched yourself performing any action? Have you ever watched yourself from the higher level of the mind? Then you'll find that the action, it just goes on automatically. You're the observer. And even as you sit here now, looking at the amount of activity that's going on within you or without you, just as you sit here now, look at that amount of activity that's going on within you without you even being aware of it. By the way, that's really, a lot of us, the way you ought to approach meditation. You just sit there and watch it. It's like, that's amazing. It's just you're thinking of your cat, and then 10 minutes later you're thinking about, you know, your behind hurts, and then you start thinking about some fantasy, and then you come back to your body. All this stuff is happening without any real, you think you're willing it into being, but it's just happening. Everything happens. The clouds come, the rain happens, it just happens. You're breathing and you're not aware of it. Your heart is beating, but you're not even aware of it. Your motor nerves are functioning. and you're not aware of it. The various cellular systems in your body, the glandular systems, all the systems, they're all functioning, and you're not even aware of it. Don't you see? Why can't this be extended to the awareness of the grosser actions we perform in life? They're also just happening. If this awareness is developed, you'll come to know the meaning of peace. And peace can only come with ease. The body might be racked with pain. The body will feel it. But if you become the observer, the pain is so much lessened. For the real self within you is without pain or suffering. It's only the ego self, which is nothing but a patterning of thought forms, that knows of pain and suffering. This is something I've been meditating, especially the last 12 years or so, a lot. And this is just beginning to really be clear to me. Where does suffering happen? All the suffering of the world, all these miserable, starving people, the people being shot, all the horrible things happening, people being raped, killed, all that stuff we hate. We hate it. Where is it all happening? It's happening in thoughts. Well, let me expand that by thoughts, experience. It's happening in sentient beings, conscious beings. It's happening in their experience. In actuality, there is no suffering whatsoever. It's just a divine play. It's just the manifestation of energy in the universe. You say, but that can't be so. We've got to stop that guy, or we have to stop the liberals, or whatever side you believe in. It must be stopped. It must be stopped. That's happening in your thoughts. And in thoughts of all sentient beings. That's what suffering is thoughts. Gururaj is very clear on that. I mean, I've got that. I could read more about this. He goes on. The next sentence, which we don't have time to get into, is, what is there in the mind? It's nothing but confusion. What's there in the mind? It's nothing but bullshit. But I'm going to finish up with this. My favorite teaching from my guru. He says, life is nothing but a damned joke. Enjoy the joke, but do not become the joke. You jokers, we're the ones who are doing this. Nobody's telling us that we have to be a liberal or a conservative. Nobody's telling us we have to be a boy or a girl. We do it in our thoughts. It's part of our patterns as samskaras. And Gururaj is not telling us to be a blank slate. Life is to be enjoyed. We're supposed to enjoy the joke. By not becoming the joke is we don't get identified with the joke. Don't become identified with the suffering, all of this stuff. But that's very subtle, very complicated. So the satsang is US 83010, man's inmost heart, man's purest vow. There must be an easy way to get a hold of it. I can talk about, get it like that. His stuff, he's a marvelous guru, but it takes I don't know about you guys, but it's taken me a lifetime. These are universal spiritual teachings, and they are our salvation, is to understand this stuff. So, any last minute, we wrap up because we've gone through an hour now. Any comments, responses, additions, laughter?
I'm going to unmute everyone here and see if we don't get too much feedback.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Oh, we have such a beautiful guru.
Jeff, you said that you got that on your computer?
Yeah, I have tons of stuff. So this one's been cleaned up. Chetan, I can send it to you.
If you want to shoot that to me, I'll send it to everyone that was a part of this.
Yeah, but it's so strange. His teachings in the Buddhist tradition, they call it samaya, self-sealed. when we're not meant to understand something, it is opaque, and we'll read it. It won't make any sense. These things take, to me, they need to be contemplated a lot. But yeah, I'll send it and everything because we're all devotees, and yeah.
It's like the teachings that are hidden under rocks, and they're discovered when we're ready for them.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. They're called terma. Terma means Guru Rinpoche, or whatever divinity is, through us will sometimes manifest wisdom teachings. And often when we're talking to each other, we say, oh my God, you're right. That just means it just manifested in our awareness. Actually, the divine awareness of us. Suddenly we got we're a little bit more full manifestation of divinity.
Jeff, I just wanted to say I'm sorry I missed the chant. I was trying to sign up with the new Zoom, and instead of just posting the meeting number in my login thing. So next time I'll be there on time.
Well, I think when we get together like this is a communal activity. Spirituality is meant to be sometimes solitary practice, but there must be a time when we all get together.
Yeah, I love this.
Those yogis up in the mountains there, up in the caves, they hang out with each other too periodically.
Little yogi parties.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
It
your
was
time.
great.
Thank
Good
you
to
for
see everybody.
All right.
It's great seeing all of you.
Okay.
Should we keep the chant, or is it okay to drop the
I
chant?
think we dropped the chant. This was way better.
All
I
right.
like the chant.
What's that?
I like the chant.
Well,
But I
like
could
the
do it
chant.
on my own. I can do it
Yeah.
on my own.
I'll just sit here in the dark. It'll be fine.